Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Mishnah Yomi is continuing in the second parak of Orlah at Mishnah 11. Now, I've had Mishnah in the past about seor, about yeast or sourdough falling into a dough in cases where there was enough to ferment it. And we saw that if it has the power to ferment the dough, then even if it's a tiny amount, if it's something asur like kilaya, karam, or orlah, it can change the entire status, making the entire dough asur. Now, Mishnah 11 has an interesting twist here. Seor shel chulin veshel truma shenafla toch isa. We had a sourdough or yeast of chulin, regular normal stuff, totally mutter, veshel truma, truma being asur to non-kohanim, and both of these fell into one large dough. Lo v'zeh kedei l'chametz, v'lo v'zeh kedei l'chametz. So neither sourdough, neither starter by itself has enough chimutz ability or enough size to actually make this dough leavened. Nitztarfu v'chimtzu, but they joined together, the powers combined, and they were able to leaven the entire dough working together. So the change here, Abosai, is the Isser chametz, the Isser starter, that did not have the power just by itself to leaven the entire dough. So the din here comes out differently. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, Achar ha'achron aniva. He says, I follow after the second one to fall in. So if the mutter one fell in first, and then the one that was Isser, well, then he would say, well, the Isser one really finished the job. It was the Makeh B'Patish here that caused the final leavening, even though it couldn't leaven by itself. V'chachamim omrim, bein shenafel Isser b'tchila, bein shenafel b'sof, whether it fell in first or whether it fell in last. Le'olam einu oser, the Isser sourdough doesn't make this whole dough aser ad she'yehevo kedei l'chametz, until it has the power to make the entire dough leavened. The logic of the sages here being the opposite of Rabbi Eliezer, even if the Isser, the truma starter, fell in second and finished the job of leavening, if it weren't for the action of the first starter, the second one would not have been able to do the job of leavening the dough, so it doesn't make the entire thing aser. Mishnah Yud Bet, Yoezer ish habira, Yoezer, the man of the bira. This can mean a place called bira, or sometimes the holy temple, the Beit HaMikdash, bimher b'menu yebone, is called the bira as well. So he could have been someone who worked at the temple. Yomi Talmidei Beit Shammai. He was from the Talmidim Beit Shammai. Ve'amar sha'alti et Rabban Gamliel hazakan. I asked Rabban Gamliel the elder, and this is not the Rabban Gamliel. We all know and love all the Rabban Gamliels, but there is a more famous Rabban Gamliel who lived a bit later. This is the Zaken one, the elderly Rabban Gamliel, who was the grandson of Hillel, the grandson of the first Hillel. So this is an amazing thing where we have a Talmid from Beis Shammai who learned a halacha from the grandson of the original Hillel, founder of Beis Hillel. As we mentioned in the Limud for Simchas Torah, it's really important to appreciate that they didn't have any Sfarim, they didn't have any podcast, they didn't have any resources. They had each other, and they had the Mesorah, and if you wanted to learn the Mesorah, you would go to a Rebbe, and you'd figure out what the halacha was, and it was very important to know the Mesorah and to say it over to your students or your colleagues when you're trying to figure out the Mishnah and the halacha. So, of course, this continues today when we have a question. Yeah, go ahead, hit me up and ask the question. You try and learn a Mishnah, learn with your friends, learn with your family, learn with your sons, learn with your parents, grandparents, everybody. Learn it together and figure it out and get pshat in Hashem's Torah. Make it your Torah as well. So Yoezer says, Sha'alti et Rabban Gamliel Zaken, Omed Bishar HaMizrach, when he was at the east gate, Ve'amar le'olam eino oser ad she'yehevo kedei l'chametz. And Rabbi Gamliel Zaken said, the pshat in the Mishnah is there is no Isser if it didn't have the strength to do the chimutz by itself. So even though it's a ma'amid and is causing some leavening, like we said in Mishnah 11, if it can't do the whole job, it can't make the whole dough aser. Shkoyach, Rabosai, be well.